Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ok Xoomer. I'm your host, Aaron Licthig, Xometry guy and former Jeopardy champion. And I'm here today with Daniel Docter. He's a managing director at Dell Technologies Capital. He spent over 20 years in venture capital investing, including 8 at Dell. And he also has a strong technical background. Before getting into the venture field, he was an electrical engineer. So welcome, Daniel. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Excellent. So first, can you talk about the kind of companies you invest in at Dell Technologies Capital?
Yeah, sure. Let me give a little bit of background just generally about Dell Technologies Capital. Mm-hmm. We are the venture capital arm for Dell Technologies, which is Michael Dell's parent or holding company that owns several other operating businesses that a lot of people probably have heard about, including VMware, including Dell itself. So I think it's always interesting that Dell Technologies owns Dell, but Dell Technologies owns Dell and Dell-EMC, and those are businesses that make laptops and servers and storage and networking equipment, as well as several other companies in the security space and in the cloud infrastructure space. So as a VC arm for Dell Technologies, we're really focused on delivering a good financial return on the investments we make. So it's kind of the bar that we're held to, but we're always trying to make investments that we believe two things are true about. One, companies that we believe we have a very differentiated way to help them be successful based on who we are and based on the family of companies that we're part of under Michael Dell's umbrella, Dell Technologies. And the second thing is turn that around, areas that we think can be additive in some way, shape, or form or helpful to Dell Technologies businesses or operating units in terms of helping them bring more and new and different and exciting technologies to their customers, or just sort of, the 1 + 1 is equal to more than 2 type of scenario where there's something adjacent or something that sits on top of or underneath that adds additional value.
Excellent. Now, when you look at manufacturing as a whole, you're investing because Dell is making hardware, you're investing in a lot of manufacturing businesses. What are some of the biggest macro trends you see out there that will have an impact on the industry?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. Dell is, I view Dell as a manufacturing powerhouse. It's something that they really understand well, and they do well. And I think in general, they have a massive network of manufacturing partners that they work with on a constant basis. So you're right. We, as an investor, I would say we're not interested in, if you will, the manufacturing in and of itself. What's interesting to us, and what I think is interesting to most other venture capital investors, is how that the manufacturing landscape is being disrupted, if I can use that word, or has the potential to be made more efficient if you don't want to be disruptive, or to change. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in the last decade that I think we had in the previous years before that. So there's a lot of getting back to your question, some of the major trends are, around digital manufacturing, around, network-based manufacturing, which of course, Xometry plays into. And so how do you leverage a distributed manufacturing infrastructure to achieve scale and value proposition and efficiency? So that's another trend. Another big trend is just-in-time manufacturing, or the advent of making devices that you previously couldn't, or objects or parts or tools making them in quote unquote real time, in a desktop, at a desktop, or whatever. So the trend of 3D printing and other sort of like instantaneous, manufacturing. And then I think the latest trend that I think Aaron, you and I talked about maybe a few weeks ago was just around the impact of the COVID or post-COVID environment, and the impact that had on people's businesses when it first happened, and what it did that to supply chains. And so I think I would say there's a rethinking about how people manage their supply chains, how you build in redundancy to your supply chain, how do you have supply chain flexibility. And it wasn't that was out of people's minds before, but I think people got very comfortable with with things working at a global scale on a global basis, working very well. And people lost sight of perhaps how fragile or how interruptible that actually was for various reasons. And now people are doing things to sort of figure that out. And maybe I'll stop there.
Yeah, and one thing I should have disclosed up front is that Dell Technologies Capital is an investor in Xometry. So many of those trends that Daniel mentioned are things that are pretty consistent with Xometry's business model.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe I should have said it more simply, and I had a really long answer, but what we look at from an investment standpoint at Dell Technologies Capital is we are looking for largely software disruption. And again, I think what people are doing now, and you can build a lot of analogies to really well-known, successful or pre-COVID successful companies, like Uber or Airbnb. And, in that case, they really were taking advantage of a couple of things like the shared economy, but they were also, creating a marketplace, which of course drove much greater demand for a service or a need than ever existed previously to the creation of that. And really that was all, that's software enabled. And I think Xometry has done the same thing. It's the use of really intelligent software to provide and create a marketplace that sort of didn't exist before. And I think the demand for it necessarily didn't even exist. It was sort of like, we didn't know how much demand there was for it until you actually show people what can be done and how much better and how much more efficient and how good this can be, sort of, right, opens up the like, wow, if I can really achieve that, well, I'm much more interested in using it, and I can use it for many more things.
Sure. Now, what advice would you have for an entrepreneur or a company that is looking to transform manufacturing, especially through the use of software or technology?
Well, the first thing I would tell you is just do it. So I think it's easier today than it ever has been for people to be entrepreneurial, to people who have an idea to execute on that idea and take that risk, which I think it's for a lot of people it's a scary first step, and I think people shy away from sort of taking that risk or taking that plunge or making that first step. But I really think just do it. There's a lot of ways you can do it, and if you think about the manufacturing trends that we just talked about, every single one of them, right, really enables somebody to be more innovative at an earlier stage with less expense and a faster time to success, and frankly a faster time to failure, since there's usually a lot of failures before you get to success. So the first thing is, I would say, just do it. Second thing I would say is, as much as possible, do as much as you can yourself before reaching out to an investor like me and trying to take money from an investor like me. And sorry, Aaron, I have a scratchy throat.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So to the best, what I would say is do as much as you can on your own. Try to get as far as you can down the path. Try to prove out as much as you can. And the reason I'm telling you that is because, like I said in the first statement, I think you can make a lot of progress. And two, capture as much value of your own work or your own rewards as you can, right? So bring investors in only when you've gotten to a certain point, or when you've gotten to a point where you can say, oh, wow, I can really see what I've done here. So those would be the first couple of things. And the other thing I guess I would generally, like before you come to an investor, or go to an investor and basically, try to make sure you actually have a sense of the market or the product or the area you're serving. It's great that people know what they're doing. I think when somebody really impresses you is when they have a little bit broader picture of the landscape around, here's what I'm doing, here's what other people have tried to do and failed, or here's what other people are doing as well, which is different. It's not as good, but it's different. It helps to have that context. And by the way, this is invaluable for a founder to go through this process of understanding their landscape, as opposed to, I have a really great idea, I think I can do it, and I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to go execute it. And by the way, here it is. That's all great, but that broader landscape context is really valuable. It helps you get to a point where us VC investors like to talk about, product market fit. And it helps you get to that point of, yes, you have a product, but is there a market, and where does it fit into the market? Because a lot of people have products that don't have market fit.
Yeah, for sure. See a lot of that out there. Now, you
Yes.
started off in engineering, more on the technical side, and then you made the jump over to venture capital. How did you make that happen?
Yeah, it was, it was a long time ago now. I've been doing venture capital for 20 years. It wasn't something that I planned. It sort of happened, serendipitously. But it's sort of, it really became sort of what I believe is like the best fit for me. I have this relatively deep, strong technical background, doing engineering, at a pretty deep level. But yet what was most interesting to me was what we just talked about, how to make a product, how to build a product, but then make that product be successful. And it was that second part that was, I'd say, more interesting to me. And so it became, venture capital sort of became a really nice intersection for me on how do I leverage and be able to use my technical experience along with my focus on building a successful product and building a successful company. It was that combination of things that was most attractive. And by the way, the other thing I realized very quickly once I got into the real world of working is that most other engineers were better than me. So I realized that I couldn't be the best engineer. There's other people with better ideas and smarter ideas. So I gravitated to probably some place that I thought I could be more successful.
That's great. And thank you for your investment in Xometry and your continued support of our work.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Well, Daniel,
I'm a big fan.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us today on OK Xoomer. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we will be back with another episode of OK Xoomer early next week. Thank you for watching, and take care.